Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fuller Homestead. My name's Brian. Today is rabbit processing day, so I thought it might be a good idea to be able to shoot this so that you can see how we process our rabbits, some of the tools that we use, and kind of our dispatching setup here. So that's the show for today. Hope you enjoy it. First, let's talk about this little hut that we have here on Rabbit Island. It's a multifunctional structure. Not only do we use it for storage, but we use it for dispatching. We use it for a rabbit hospital using these cages right here when it's out of the weather. In here, we've got stuff for our solar setup, for extra water bottles, extra feeders, wire, all kinds of stuff, medicine even in there. This little table that we built specifically the dimensions that we need to build new grow out cages. And so I've got my measurements here to remember, and then I've got the spaces marked off here so that when I roll my wire out, it's really easy for me to go ahead and make my cuts. There's some pre-cut stuff for future cages. And then on the outside here, I've got one hook space for a gambrel. We've got our hopper popper right here, an apron, knives, things like that. And so it's kind of a neat setup. Let's talk about what we're using today before we go grab a rabbit. This large container of ice water is just the biggest necessity. No matter what time of year that you're working in, you got to cool that rabbit meat down quickly. So in here are 15 bags of ice and the water. We've got a bucket of water to dip the rabbit in after dispatch, just to wet down the fur, makes it where it's not quite as messy. And then this is going to be our gut bucket. Now, once we start processing these rabbits, you may notice there's a lot more chickens that come around because they know whether it's meat chicken processing or rabbit processing, they get the kidneys, the hearts, the livers. And for some of you, you're like, why don't you keep that and eat it? But we figure that on those days, we might as well share the wealth. And we have kept some of the chicken livers and things like that. But for rabbit, usually it all goes to the chickens and they love it and they get their extra dose of protein. So as I've mentioned, we've got 30 rabbits to process. Not all of them are mine. These 16 have come from another rabbitry. They are all Californians. They're part of their cull. So we have partnered with them. And what we'll do is we'll keep them in our freezer. And as the sales go, we'll just split the cost of the sales there. And then, or the profits of the sales, not the cost of the sales, whatever that is. And then I've got all of mine. So she has 16 and I've got 14, making 30 if my math is right. The other thing that I forgot to mention in our setup here is that with all of these rabbits comes a lot of rabbit guts. And so a big part of this is preparing for that and digging a hole. We've done one right out here outside the rabbitry that we'll dump all of our guts into and then bury it and be sanitary. For some, I know they have fed guts to pigs. They have used it in compost, things like that. For us, right now, at this point, we're just digging a hole and burying them, enriching the soil, as it were. Now, I don't know what YouTube would do if I showed the actual dispatching of a rabbit. So what I'm going to do is first give a disclaimer. If you do not like the idea of seeing a video where we are processing a rabbit, and you may want to move on. But if you're interested in how we do that, then this might be the video for you. So what my plan is I'll bring a rabbit over here, show you how we would set it up into the hopper popper, and then I'll shift the camera angle where it's behind me so you can't actually see the physical rabbit dying, but you can see the pull. So that's what we'll do. Okay, so just an up close look at this little hopper popper. What I did was took a section of angle iron and then I took a long nail and I welded it at an angle. And what happens is the rabbit's head will go, they'll be facing this way. Rabbit's head will slide back into there. I'll be on the opposite side of this, pull the back legs. One time, the neck comes loose from the spine and it is over just like that. It is the most humane way to dispatch a rabbit. So I'll bring one over here and we'll get started. Don't know exactly how well I did at explaining it, so I thought I'd bring a rabbit over here and just show you real quick. What we'll do is I'll turn her around. I'm going to lift up her ears and we will slide her back into this nook where the base of her skull is resting on top of this angle. I'll have the back legs and then I'll just pull one time real quick and it'll be over just like that. So we'll readjust the camera so you're seeing it from behind and then see how quick it is in real time. As we mentioned before, I've got 2 buckets here, one just to dip the rabbit in, soak down the hair. That way, as you're peeling the fur back, it doesn't get all over the meat. And then we'll have this bucket for just the guts. These gambrels are real nice and they're so easy to make. Bobby at the Rabbitry Center, if you watch any of my other videos, you know I mention him a lot because pretty much my whole setup is based off of what he does. And made these, he shows instructions on how to make them. They're so easy and they help you so much. I think he even has a new design out now where the clips aren't on the outside of the bar, but they're on the inside. But I still have the OG. The knife that we're using is made by Haviland. It is just a flip open knife that uses these replaceable surgical blades, uber sharp. So just be careful because it's very possible and very easy to cut yourself when you get going quickly. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pinch a little bit of fur right here at the base of the foot. I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to make an incision. I'm pulling away from the meat and I'm going to make a little incision right there, trying not to cut the meat. Do the same thing around the edge of the skin. And really in the summertime, the skin is pretty weak, so it's not that hard to tear and pull down. You don't have to cut that much. Wintertime, it's a little bit tougher just because the hide feels thicker. So we'll do the same thing on this one. Pull away and then scrape down. And then we'll pull away from the meat and we'll get down to this. You know what just hit me? Teacher's curse. I forgot to cut off the head for the bleed out. So if your spine is separated, it's really easy to do. You just simply grab it, go up underneath here with your knife, separate it from there and drop it in your gut bucket. And that will help the lungs bleed out and you won't have to worry about any blood as you go up. There's very little blood in this rabbit anyway. So now we're going to reach up under here, separate it from the belly, from the abdomen, go in with our knife very carefully and cut up, separate right there. Then we're going to go to the back, do the same thing, pull it away from the meat and cut out this way. We'll deal with the tail here a little bit later. Now you can cut the paws off right now if you want to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. We'll go ahead and angle down so you can kind of see, trying to cut at the joints. There are a lot of tendons in rabbit's feet, so sometimes it can be a little bit difficult. But what I do is I take the paw and I bend it back and then I go right where that joint is. And then once you find that joint, it's fairly easy to pull back and pull away from the leg. So once again, take the paw, pull it back so you can feel where that joint is. Take your knife, go right in between it. You can see I'm barely putting any pressure on it, and then it just pulls away. Try not to damage your blade as well. All right, so now what we'll do, set my knife right here, is we'll take the hide and we'll pull straight down and it comes right off. As I mentioned, hides in the summer are a little bit thin, so if you were trying to save them for crafts or things like that, I would wait until wintertime. These are a little bit difficult to deal with. The next thing that I'm going to do is go into the abdomen here and I'm going to remove the bladder so that I don't get urine or anything. So if you look at the belly of the rabbit, you can see it almost looks like a zipper that's right up and down. So what I do is I reach in the center and I pull out so I can make an incision with the blade facing out and the back of the knife facing towards all of the intestines. And I just slide up that little zipper, pull it apart and reveal that this rabbit has had a lot to drink recently. I'll pinch off the bladder right up here and pull out. You can see how much fluid is in that. And then I'm going to snip it off at the top, self-contained, drop it in my bucket. Now, the next thing I actually learned, and I wish I could give her credit, she was out of Louisiana, hasn't posted in a long time, but she gave it an interesting way to remove the tail. So I'm going to show you that because I think it's genius. So I'm going up a little bit further, and then I'm going to take the hips and I'm going to pop them out of socket as much as I can. I'm going to take the tail, I'm going to go to one side, and I'm going to cut down towards that zipper. Do the same thing on the other side. Cut down towards that zipper. I'm going to go to the back of the rabbit here, go on each side of the tail this way, cutting down just a little bit, doesn't take a whole lot. And then I'll go back to the front and I just simply grab the tail and I pull straight down. The tail comes out. You don't have to worry about any kind of poop being stuck back up in between there because it ripped it right out. Now what we're going to do is pull the rest of the guts out. I'll try to do this where you can see what I'm dealing with. The chickens are already gathered around at my feet, knowing that they are waiting. The things that we are trying to save for them are the kidneys. The kidneys are these two little bean shapes that are on either side concealed in this fat. Throw them out to the chicken here. There's about 6 already once they realize that this is what we're doing. The next thing, did drop my knife, do not try to catch that. Cut you up, ask me how I know. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take out the liver. Now the liver will have this little green thing in here called the gallbladder. You do not want to burst that. So I'll try to pick that away from the liver, pinch it off and throw it in my gut bucket. And then I'll pull a little bit apart just for the chickens so one of them's not running off with all of it. Okay, the last things that I throw out to the chickens, which ironically enough is not their favorite, is the lungs and the heart. They don't mind the heart, but they don't care for the lungs. Rinse my knife off a little bit. And that's located in this cavity in the chest. It's got this membrane, so I just cut into that, pull it apart. Because the blood has drained out, the lungs are going to be fairly pale. I'll reach in there and pull the heart and the lungs out at the same time. There's the lungs and the heart. I'm going to go ahead and separate it so they can get that heart. And then I'll throw the lungs out there for those that want them. And basically you're really done. Every now and then I'll go in here just to make sure I'm not missing anything through this section. There does seem to be a little bit of intestine still in here. Let me see if I can pull this out real quick. It's kind of slippery. Doesn't seem to be anything in it. It's just a little section of intestine. And that's pretty much done. I'm going to throw it in the ice bucket after I remove the feet. Let me take one of these and I'll show you what I'm going to do with one foot, and then we'll just do the other one off camera. Pull a little bit of skin back to get towards that joint. There's this huge tendon. I don't know if you can see that real quick. There's all of these tendons actually, but there's one large one right there and right there. And once you kind of do that, you can do what you need to with the foot. But same principle, bend the foot, feel for that joint, find out where those tendons are. I was a little bit low there. And you can just pull that away from the leg bone. I've got some skin still attached there, so let me pull that off real quick here. Okay, and that's all there is to it. I'm going to put it in the ice right now. Okay, so that's one down, 29 to go. Let's time lapse. I started thinking that the time lapse thing is cool, but maybe there's some of you are like, hey, how long does it actually take in real time to process a rabbit? So I'm gonna do that now. Obviously I'm about 10, 11 in, and so I'm kind of in a rhythm, but as sure as I do this, something's gonna go wrong. So it's not a race. You wanna be safe because you can easily cut yourself, especially with the knife that I'm using. So we'll kind of start the time once I get the rabbit in the hopper popper, see what it does. Okay, I think it was about 4 minutes. Now we know. And that's going to do it for today's video. Full disclosure, I forgot to shoot an outro for this particular episode, so I'm doing it like 5 days after the fact. But it turns out it's perfect timing so that I can remind you about our 500 subscriber giveaway we've got going on right now. Just check out the last video that we posted. It'll give you all of the rules and details. Please check that out. We would love for you to enter. Part of how you enter is being a subscriber. So if you're not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, give us a thumbs up, please. It helps us. And then if you've got a comment or a question, you can leave it down below. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day.